I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, bright blessed days, dark sacred nights, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. They learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Beste collega's en vrienden, dear Professor Plotkin, cher Stanley. Quel bonheur, mais surtout quel honneur pour notre université, pour nos deux universités, de vous compter parmi nous aujourd'hui. Vous avez de nombreux amis en Belgique, à l'Université d'Anvers et à l'Université libre de Bruxelles, pour qui chacune de vos visites est une promesse d'échange chaleureux et passionnant. Vous êtes pour beaucoup le parrain de la vaccinologie contemporaine et une source immense d'inspiration et de courage. Oh, je ne vais pas rappeler ici vos nombreuses découvertes scientifiques et le rôle pionnier que vous avez joué dans le développement de nombreux vaccins, parmi lesquels le vaccin contre la rubéole, depuis les années 60. D'autres l'ont fait et le feront encore aujourd'hui. La pandémie de Covid-19 a rappelé au monde entier à quel point la vaccination est l'outil le plus efficace pour prévenir les maladies infectieuses et à quel point la recherche doit sans cesse être poursuivie pour protéger les enfants, les femmes et les hommes adultes comme les personnes âgées des anciennes et des nouvelles infections qui les menacent. Ces deux notions ont mené toute votre vie. Votre extraordinaire vocation est née à l'adolescence, tout comme votre passion pour la science. Fort de la lecture de certains ouvrages scientifiques, vous avez décidé à l'âge de 15 ans déjà de dédier votre vie à la médecine et à la recherche. Vous racontez vous-même que votre intérêt pour la science a même commencé lorsque vous étiez enfant à New York et combien les mots de l'écrivain Sinclair Lewis vous impressionnent à l'époque. Et je cite, « Être un scientifique, c'est un mélange d'émotions mystérieuses comme du mysticisme ou le désir d'écrire de la poésie. Le scientifique est intensément religieux, il est tellement religieux qu'il ne peut admettre les demi-vérités, car elles sont une insulte à sa foi. » Fin de citation. Votre passion pour la science et la recherche n'a jamais faibli. Vous avez consacré votre vie à la vaccinologie. C'est parce que cette science a l'énorme potentiel de réduire de manière très efficace les souffrances de l'humanité. Cette vocation précoce aura aussi des répercussions extraordinaires. Vous avez développé des vaccins majeurs et surtout contribué de façon très significative à la prévention des maladies infectieuses graves. Votre travail inlassable a eu durant ces 60 dernières années un impact fondamental sur la réduction de la morbidité et de la mortalité dans le monde entier. À ce titre, vous êtes non seulement un scientifique de très grand talent, mais aussi et surtout un humaniste qui a contribué au bien-être des populations sur la planète entière. Vous êtes également conscient des défis que comporte cette entreprise et de l'importance d'associer toutes les parties prenantes nécessaires au développement et à l'utilisation des vaccins. Promoteur de liens forts entre la recherche fondamentale et la recherche clinique, vous favorisez également la collaboration entre les institutions académiques, l'industrie, les autorités de santé et les gouvernements. Le respect et l'admiration pour votre travail sont très forts parmi tous les acteurs de la vaccination dont vous êtes en quelque sorte le père. Vous êtes toujours désireux de repousser les limites non seulement de la connaissance scientifique, mais aussi des structures qui permettent de rendre les vaccins disponibles au plus grand nombre. Infatigable ambassadeur de la vaccination, vous avez voyagé partout dans le monde tout au long de votre vie pour rencontrer et interagir avec des personnes, les plus simples comme les plus importantes et les plus illustres. Enseignant toujours disponible et extrêmement généreux de votre temps, vous avez contribué à la formation d'un nombre immense de chercheurs et de praticiens de la vaccination. Vos publications et celles des collaborateurs que vous avez rassemblés autour de vous sont une des sources principales d'information dans le domaine des vaccins. À un moment où la désinformation menace la connaissance et le choix informé d'utiliser les vaccins, votre enseignement et votre amour de la vérité sont des balises qui nous guident pour que les vaccins restent un outil essentiel d'amélioration de la santé et du bien-être des populations. J'aimerais insister sur deux expressions essentielles de la vie, de votre vie de grand chercheur, de l'immense chercheur que vous êtes. D'abord, la vocation, la passion de la science, la passion de transmettre, la passion de la transmission, de l'esprit critique, de l'esprit scientifique, du mélange de doute, de créativité, de détermination et de persévérance que cela suppose. La volonté de convaincre nos contemporains que la science n'est pas un outil de domination au service des élites, mais un outil d'émancipation, d'apprentissage, de l'humilité, de service désintéressé à la communauté. Cher Stanley, vous incarnez parfaitement cette science-là et la volonté constante depuis plus de 60 ans de la diffuser et de l'offrir à nos contemporains. Ensuite, l'humanisme. Votre carrière a été une suite continue de dévouements successifs au bénéfice du bien commun, du bien de l'humanité, des enfants en particulier, partout dans le monde, sans distinction aucune. Vous avez sauvé des millions de vies et des millions le seront encore grâce à vous. Votre générosité est exemplaire. Vous avez inspiré de nombreux collègues au sein de nos institutions de recherche et d'enseignement. Il leur est apparu évident, fondamental, que l'Institut de recherche en vaccinologie que nous inaugurons aujourd'hui devrait porter votre nom. Il reste encore énormément de défis à relever et nos efforts devront sans cesse être poursuivis. Mais votre travail et votre exemple sont un socle solide qui inspire la créativité, la générosité et le courage. Vous avez cité Isaac Newton disant, et je cite, « Si j'ai vu plus loin, c'est en me tenant sur les épaules de géants. » C'est à notre tour de nous tenir sur vos épaules pour voir plus loin, cher Stanley. Vous êtes un géant de la vaccinologie contemporaine. L'Université libre de Bruxelles et l'Université d'Anvers sont honorées de vous décerner conjointement les insignes de docteur honoris causa pour vos accomplissements scientifiques et votre contribution au bien-être de l'humanité. Je passe maintenant la parole à votre marraine, Madame la professeure Muriel Moser.
dear Dr. Plotkin, dear Stanley. It is a great honor to be your marraine, and it is quite easy to explain why you deserve that honoris causa honor. You are the perfect ambassador of vaccinology. Thanks to your major contribution as a medical doctor, a scientific researcher, director of Pasteur Mérieux, and a humanist. Last week, several cases of monkeypox were detected in Belgium. That reminds us of the early success of vaccination, that is the development in 1796 of a vaccine against the smallpox. This disease has caused over 300 million deaths in the 20th century and was eradicated in 1980. First, your contribution to vaccinology. Polio was a common childhood disease that paralyzed some children. In 1959, you, together with Hilary Koprowski, you tested the efficacy, safety of live-attenuated poliovirus vaccine in infants and studies the factors influencing the successful vaccination. In 1963, an epidemic of rubella broke out in Europe and reached the United States, causing birth defects in thousands of infants. You developed the rubella vaccine by creating a weakened strain of the rubella virus. This vaccine is now used worldwide as a member of the triple vaccine. After that, you remained involved in vaccine research, particularly for CMV, varicella, rabies, and rotavirus. You have published 867 scientific reports in a 7-year span. Your most recent article in Press in Immunological Review is entitled Correlation of Protection Against SARS-CoV-2 Infection and COVID Disease. And I cite you, you write, antibodies against epitopes of S1 of SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus give the most accurate correlate of protection against infection. The role of cellular responses includes CD8 positive T cells that control viral replication. More information is needed regarding mucosal responses. Regarding your contribution as a transmitter of knowledge, in addition to your career as professor of the University of Pennsylvania, you published a standard textbook on vaccinology. It is a 1,720-page tome and offers a complete understanding of each disease and the latest knowledge on vaccines. The 7th edition was published in 2017. It has been described by Bill Gates as an indispensable guide to the enhancement of well-being in the world. Well-being in our world is certainly one of your major concerns during your whole life. Your contribution as humanist. During your entire career, you try to find practical solutions to human health problems. You published articles with challenging titles, which are think pieces of human health problems. In 2009, an article was entitled Sang-froid, in a time of trouble. Is a vaccine against HIV possible? You review the experience of the past, the uncomplicated example of the rubella vaccine, and the misadventure that happened with the first licensed rotavirus vaccine that caused intestinal invagination. The choice of the vector, as you said, was a key issue. You underline the complexity of correlates of immunity, and you conclude, let us not give up, the goal is worth it. In 2021, you published a message to the policymakers entitled Polio Eradication Vaccine Investment. An adequate supply of inactivated polio vaccine is now needed for multiple suppliers around the world to support polio eradication. And finally, in 2022, you published an article with Pierre Van Damme on the immunization policy development in 6 European countries, including Belgium. You highlight a diverse range of challenges to achieve effective measles control and hopefully elimination. After the Ebola crisis in 2015, you proposed to establish a global vaccine development fund to carry vaccine from their conception to development and licensure. Your call was heard, and the CEPI was launched. This is a scientific, medical, and political breakthrough. Dear Stanley, you spend your life in vaccine development. The World Health Organization notes that the vaccination spares 2 to 3 million lives every year. By developing vaccines, by following their efficacy, safety for years, by advising policymakers, you were clearly a central link of the chain. Mille merci et félicitations.
J'appelle le professeur Plotkin et Pierre Gurdjian à nous rejoindre. Viens avec nous.
Cher professeur Plotkin, je vais vous remettre les insignes de l'Université d'Anvers. Ce n'est que le début de la cérémonie. Congratulations.
Merci.
Congratulations.
À mon tour, je vous remets l'épitoge de l'Université libre de Bruxelles.
Maintenant, je vous remets le diplôme de l'Université d'Anvers. Ce n'est pas fini.
Et celui de l'Université libre de Bruxelles.
Merci.
I have the pleasure to give you the medal of the University of Brussels.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well,
C'est un photoshoot auquel vous devez vous livrer. Oui, ici.
oui,
Comme ça.
ici. Chère rectrice Schaus, cher recteur Van Goten, cher Dr. Moser, Marchand et Van Damme. Alors, mesdames et messieurs, en Belgique, on ne sait jamais quelle langue parler. Mais je voudrais exprimer mes remerciements dans la belle langue de Georges Simenon. D'abord, je voudrais dire comment je suis touché au cœur par l'attribution de docteur de l'Université libre de Bruxelles et l'Université d'Antwerp. C'est un honneur inespéré que je vais chérir pour le reste de ma vie. J'imagine qu'il a été décerné pour mes travaux dans le domaine de vaccinologie. En effet, ma décision de travailler sur le développement des vaccins avait lieu à l'âge de 15 ans, quand j'ai lu un livre pas très connu maintenant, un roman qui s'appelle Arrowsmith. Ce bouquin raconte l'histoire d'un médecin qui, après maintes aventures, décide de consacrer sa vie au développement des vaccins. Ainsi, mon chemin a été choisi. Après, je suis sorti de l'école de médecine et être stagiaire dans un hôpital. J'ai analysé dans les Centers for Disease Control en Atlanta pour apprendre l'épidémiologie. Tandis que je faisais mes études à CDC, j'ai appris qu'un chercheur qui s'appelait Hilary Koprowski a pris la direction du Wistar Institute à l'Université de Pennsylvanie. Mais peu après, j'ai appris que le CDC y avait un labo qui travaillait sur le charbon et autres maladies, et qu'un poste au labo vient d'ouvrir. Je n'avais aucun intérêt au charbon, mais je pensais que si j'y vais, je pouvais trouver un moyen d'entrer au labo de Koprowski. Et cela s'est passé. Il m'a permis d'entrer dans son labo et commencer à apprendre la virologie. En 1959, Koprowski m'a demandé d'aller au Congo belge pour rassembler les résultats des vaccinations orales massives contre la polio, conduites là-bas avec les souches atténuées qu'il a mises à point. D'abord, j'ai fait une escale à Bruxelles pour consulter avec scientifiques belges, y compris Lise Terry, renommée pour sa connaissance de l'immunologie. Donc, Bruxelles a été la première ville étrangère que j'ai visitée. Depuis Bruxelles, je suis allé directement au Congo, où j'ai ramassé les résultats de la vaccination contre le polio. Après mon retour, j'ai lancé mon propre labo et où j'ai commencé mes travaux sur autres vaccins. La vaccinologie est devenue le centre de ma vie et j'ai vu le changement de la vaccinologie d'un sujet banal et aléatoire à une science pour laquelle l'immunologie, la biologie structurelle, la biologie moléculaire et la santé publique sont combinés pour produire les moyens de prévenir maintes maladies infectieuses et peut-être dans l'avenir maladies non infectieuses. J'ai eu le plaisir de travailler sur le vaccin maintes vaccins, comme on a mentionné, contre la charbon, polio, rubella, rotavirus, etc. À mon âge, on se demande, est-ce que ma vie a valu quelque chose? Est-ce que j'ai accompli ce que mes ambitions ont voulu? Après tout, l'action des vaccins est négative, c'est-à-dire de prévenir les maladies. Néanmoins, les millions de morts et la souffrance que ne se passe pas à raison de la vaccination me donnent le sentiment que mon travail a valu quelque chose. Une fois plus, je remercie à l'Université de Bruxelles et l'Université d'Antwerp qui m'a décerné ces doctorats, ce que pour moi sera un trésor. Merci beaucoup.
Professor Plotkin, dear Stanley, chers collègues, chers vous tous ici présents, si nombreux, un grand merci d'assister à cette cérémonie qui est quand même exceptionnelle. Disons d'abord combien je suis heureux que l'Université d'Anvers et l'Université de Bruxelles, à ULB, se trouvent ici ensemble. C'est un signe qui est prometteur. Et décerner, nous ensemble, ce doctorat honoris causa est pour nous un honneur extrême. Il faut dire l'agenda d'un recteur s'annonce généralement très varié et très chargé. Et ce n'est pas différent dans mon cas, mais pour moi quand même, chers collègues, il faut le dire, il s'agit très souvent de vaccinologie. Vaccinologie ici, vaccinologie là, vaccinologie partout. Je regarde mon agenda. Fin mars, il y a eu l'ouverture de Vaccinopolis. Quelques jours plus tard, notre université a décerné le doctorat honorifique, honoris causa, au fondateur de BioNTech, événement exceptionnel. Un peu plus tard, j'ai accueilli des centaines de personnes enthousiastes au symposium annuel de la vaccinologie. Il y a Pierre Van Damme qui me téléphone fréquemment. Il y a en plus les 3 vaccins que j'ai reçus et j'attends impatiemment mon 4e booster, comment ça s'appelle. Mais donc, soyons sérieux, nous lançons ici aujourd'hui le European Plotkin Institute, l'Institut européen de vaccinologie Plotkin, institut qui regroupe l'expertise de Vaccinopolis et du nouveau laboratoire d'immunologie de l'ULB. Chers collègues, vous deux, je vous remercie aussi particulièrement. La nouvelle institution a été rendue possible grâce au soutien du gouvernement fédéral, dont un merci. Je suis fier du fait que nos 2 universités ont une expertise qui est construite depuis des décennies et qui joue tous les 2 maintenant un rôle important dans la prévention des infections virales et bactériennes. La pandémie a montré son importance de nouveaux projets tels que l'Institut européen Plotkin de vaccinologie prenant de l'ampleur. Il s'agit donc d'une accélération vraiment nécessaire si nous voulons être encore mieux préparés aux nouveaux pathogènes et épidémies à venir. Un tel institut offre également l'opportunité d'une collaboration intensive avec d'autres universités et centres de connaissances nationaux et internationaux. Les professeurs Van Damme et Marchand travaillent ensemble donc depuis de nombreuses années, ce qui se traduit aujourd'hui dans ce doctorat honoris causa mutuel. Et par cette nouvelle institution qui porte son nom, le nom dit vraiment tout. Voilà un institut européen. Et après tout, la coopération au niveau international est vitale si nous voulons relever avec succès le défi des vaccins et des maladies infectieuses. Cher Stanley, nous sommes ravis de pouvoir donner votre nom à cet institut. Vous êtes un pionnier dans le domaine de la vaccinologie. On vous appelle parfois le père, le parrain. Je suis impressionné par le nombre de publications, 867, dont une pile de 1700 pages. I presume that the other one are of 1700 pages, but globally spoken, this is impressive. Et la façon dont vous vous êtes donné une vie entière dès l'âge de 15 ans, voilà ce qui inspire nous tous. C'est un grand honneur pour nous tous de vous accueillir ici et de vous adresser désormais la parole en tant que docteur honoris causa de l'Université d'Anvers et de la ULB. Un grand merci. Mes félicitations aussi à Madame Plotkin, à la famille entière et à l'équipe entière, sans doute, sans lequel vous ne seriez pas ici aujourd'hui. Voilà, messieurs, mesdames, messieurs, vous tous. Les moments solennels incluent souvent aussi une touche de musique. C'est pourquoi nous écoutons maintenant à nouveau la harpiste Pia Silva. Je vous souhaite encore une belle journée et une belle cérémonie. Merci.
All of me, why not take all of me? Can't you see I'm no good without you? Take my lips, I wanna lose them. Take my arms, I'll never use them. Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on, dear, without you? You took the part that once was my heart, so why not take all of me? Your goodbye left me with eyes that cry. How can I go on, dear, without you? You took the part that once was my heart, so why not take all of? Why not take all? Why not take all of me?
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Pia. Dear Stanley, dear Susan, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure now to present to you the European Institute for Vaccinology, the Plotkin Institute for Vaccinology, and you'll see already the logo there on the slides. And the question is, when did it start and where did it start? In fact, it started, I would say, almost by accident. I had the pleasure to be involved in what was called in 2017 Poliopolis, and some of you know what happened there. I had only to convince my rector to start that initiative. He was quickly convinced that this was really key to make a difference at the level of polio eradication. And so we were invited to participate in a huge consortium with CDC, with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, with a lot of other experts in the world. And the challenge was to convince 30 subjects, 30 volunteers to stay in quarantine for 30 days in a contained village, which was not that evident. 66 containers were really formed a container village, and they had to stay there to help assess the safety and the immunogenicity of a novel polio vaccine. But the spirit at that moment was, yes, we can. And so when Arnaud Marchand asked my team whether we would further collaborate, because there was a lot of expertise already present in Arnaud's team and in our team, and he wanted to work together with us, and it was really a nice collaboration we had already with European projects and with national projects. Again, we said, yes, we can, both of us. And I will ask for the first slide, and the next one. Usually we do that. Yes, that's the Poliopolis village that some of you have seen also through the media. Next one. Thank you. And we both share, in fact, a common vision already in 2017, 2018, a common mission and a common strategy. And if we, next slide, look at that mission, well, in fact, our aim is really to help accelerate the evaluation, development of vaccine candidates, perhaps also older vaccines and newer vaccines, participate in global efforts for better epidemic preparedness, and these days we also talk about epidemic preparedness and prevention, build a unique clinical immunology and microbiology infrastructure, and as you can see, support a global network and international training. This is really an important mission. You can say an ambitious mission, but we both really believe with our teams we can try to make a difference. When we talk about infrastructure, next slide, well, as you can see, these are new buildings, very recent buildings. One under the leadership of Arnaud Marchand, quite unique, 3,600 square meters, focusing on immunology and biology, and also an outpatient vaccine trial unit with high-level safety laboratories. The other one I have the pleasure to lead, large facility as well, 6,000 square meters, with a unique quarantine unit with 30 beds where we can do human challenge studies. A large hotel, BSL-3 hotel, the largest in the world, as Peter Pio used to say. Also with an outpatient vaccine trial unit as we have doing these days, and again also high-level safety laboratories. Next slide. Next slide. Yes. Of course, two buildings, that's not really what makes our collaboration. What is important is to integrate clinical and immunological capacity and expertise. And this at a level, as you can see, of many different items. Networking, the reputation of both teams, the relationship with the authorities at Belgian level and international level, the strategic location in Europe, the flexibility we have to offer, and I think we all know that pandemic preparedness is requesting flexibility and expecting flexibility, that unique human challenge facility, the state-of-the-art of the analytical tools at the level of the IMI with Arnaud's team, and of course the complementary activities of both teams. Next slide. Not surprisingly, this happens in Belgium. And Belgium offers, as you all know, a large number of assets. The geographic and geostrategic location, the fact that we are very well supported by the activities of ethics committee at many universities and institutions, the Belgian regulatory authorities who have done, I would almost say, miracles during the COVID-19 period, the support of the federal government, the academic excellence, and then we don't talk only about University of Antwerp, of Université Libre de Bruxelles, but I think a lot of universities are offering a fantastic formation education for a future generation of researchers, the global connectivity, and of course also the important background and power of the pharmaceutical industry, the biotech industry in Belgium. This forms a fantastic ecosystem in Europe, and we have to work all together to make the difference. And that's exactly what we want to do today and in the future. Next slide. Of course, we can connect two dots at two universities, but that's not where it ends. The idea is connecting a lot of dots. And if you look at the logo in fact shows dots that are connecting with each other, forming a V. And I think that's exactly what we want to do, is to work all together to make a huge difference in terms of vaccinology. And you can see that our mission goes really to advance and accelerate vaccine research. We equally think it's important to harmonize clinical and laboratory research. Of course, if we do that, this is not for just the community within the industrialized countries. This is for the global community, with, in particular, also attention for the low and middle income countries. And we are convinced that you can develop a perfect vaccine that is safe, that is immunogenic, that is efficacious. If you don't get it in the muscle, you have done nothing than science. I think it's equally important to invest in communication, in training future generation of nurses, midwives, doctors, pharmacists. And there, both of us are convinced we have to continue to collaborate together and to invest in that particular activity. Next slide. So we think, both of us, that with this institute, we might change a little stone in the river of bio-preparedness. And that's why we are here today. Now, if we are here today, it is also because of one person, because of someone who devoted his whole life to vaccinology, who is tremendously committed up to today, and I'm sure also in the future, to vaccinology. And let me introduce now someone who started reading the newspaper at the age of 3, who was, and perhaps still is, fascinated by the book Microbe Hunter, who could go for a career in the Air Force, but it turned out differently, clearly, who was working on a number of pathogens. And whenever I hear someone saying, Stanley Plotkin has been working on that pathogen, so I don't read the list here because I'm sure I will miss a number of those pathogens you have been working on. But just to name a few, I think Pseudomonas, anthrax, polio, rubella, rabies, rotavirus, varicella, cytomegalovirus, pertussis, amongst others, who has been instrumental in the development of a large number of vaccines, but in particular, rubella vaccine, and we know how important that is, who realized in the 80s that vaccinology was a growing field and a textbook was urgently needed, and some of you referred already to that, and the first textbook with Ted Mortimer was published in 1988, while the next one, I would say not the next one, the 8th edition will come out in January next year. So this is really a huge work. So it is now my pleasure to invite Stanley Plotkin to the stage. Thank you.
Well, you know, why I'm here today is really in large part because I have such tremendous respect for Pierre and Arnaud, and have learned that respect over a number of years. So it is indeed a tremendous pleasure to celebrate the beginning of an institute that they are directing. I mean, I'm just my name, but they are doing the work, and I expect great things from their work with their colleagues at the new institute, with, I might say, with facilities that I have not seen elsewhere in the world. So I think this is a tremendous advance. At any rate, I can certainly did not imagine greater honors than those conveyed to me today, and which of course include the honorary doctorates, but also that an institute is carrying my name is something I could never have imagined. I've been fortunate in my life in many ways, and the adage is true that it is better to be lucky than to be smart. And so I think my luck really has been excellent. As you all know, vaccinology began with the astute observations of Jenner regarding cowpox, but became a science thanks to the first small steps of Louis Pasteur. Vaccinology flourished at the end of the 18th and the beginning of the 19th centuries, thanks to the observations and experiments of European and American scientists operating on the principles of weakening pathogens through passages under artificial conditions, or killing pathogens so they could expose the immune system to the antigens that could prevent disease. So several key discoveries during the late 20th century and the 21st century have allowed vaccinology to flourish. These new discoveries include growth of viruses in cell culture, something that happened when I was young, use of DNA and RNA for coding for antigens, production of proteins in native conformations, the conjugation of bacterial capsular polysaccharides with proteins, attenuation of pathogens by changes in coding of the genome rather than simply passage, the use of viruses as vectors for foreign proteins. These are just some of the strategies being used to develop vaccines. The response of vaccinology to the coronavirus outbreak shows you what vaccinology is capable of doing. The results are there for anybody to see, aside from the vaccination and the control of COVID in most countries in the world that use vaccines. We can look at the future. And one thing that I am reminded of is when one looks at the incidence of diseases on which I and my colleagues have worked, we see that they are controlled or largely gone. Recently, there was a map of rotavirus disease in the United States that was published, and the map showed the tremendous number of outbreaks of infantile diarrhea throughout the US in 2006, when the vaccine that developed in my lab was introduced. And this current map shows almost nothing. So that's the kind of result that warms the heart of anyone who, like me, works on vaccination. So let me see if I can turn this page. So what about what it needs to be done? We should remember that new infections will continue to arise. Indeed, even more likely now, because the distance between, let's say, Cape Town and Brussels is now a matter of hours, not months. The pandemic of COVID is an object lesson concerning the spread of disease, but we should not forget that chikungunya, Zika, Ebola, All of those happened relatively recently and showed how quickly disease can spread. And of course, monkeypox is another example. So there is the constant danger of epidemic disease, but vaccinology is now a distinct field in which immunology, structural biology, epidemiology, and public health come together. As it is now a scientific specialty, it deserves institutions that are devoted to the subject, in addition to a vaccine industry that is ready to make products of commercial interest. We need institutions that study the basic science of vaccinology, like this new European Vaccinology Institute. We have had indications that vaccination impinges not only on target diseases, but on other diseases through the influence of innate immune responses and also the economic effects of vaccination are tremendous, but are not generally appreciated. So under the right circumstances, coming back to this new institute, and with elaborate precautions, human challenges can serve to define the immune responses that are necessary to prevent diseases that are difficult to study in nature. And using that information, we can create prototype vaccines to test the efficacy of the immune responses induced by those vaccines. So this new institute can achieve knowledge that is difficult to achieve otherwise. Of course, this will not be easy. However, led by scientists such as Drs. Van Damme and Marchand, the discoveries that they will make will ensue to more and better vaccines to protect both children and adults. The fact that the new institution will bear my name is a source of infinite pride to me, but the fact that such an institute exists should also be a source of pride to Belgium and to Europe, where vaccinology began and where it will continue to develop to prevent infectious diseases and perhaps in the future non-infectious diseases. We have witnessed in the last 2 years a pandemic that has devastated people and nations, leaving a wake of death and disease. Had we known more about coronaviruses before the pandemic, it would have been possible to limit the terrible consequences. We missed the boat when the first SARS broke out in 2002, and we were not ready for SARS-2. In order to prevent SARS-3 and other viruses, we need to study prototype vaccines from many different groups of viruses in order to achieve control of those diseases that may occur in the future. We have the tools to prepare for such events, but we must not be complacent, and we must therefore prepare in advance. My hope is that the European Plotkin Vaccine Institute will be in the forefront of that preparation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stanley. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Professor Peter Piot. We all know Peter Piot for his pioneer work in virology and public health, also for his vision of science and its relation to societies. So we are fortunate, Pierre and I, that Peter is advising us on the development of this project. Unfortunately, Peter could not be present today. He's attending the Davos Forum from where he's sending us this video.
Hello, everybody. Let me start with my heartfelt congratulations. In the first place to Stanley Plotkin, a giant in vaccine development, for your honorary doctorate at ULB, but also for the launch of the European Plotkin Institute of Vaccinology, which has been created thanks to the vision and leadership and entrepreneurship of Pierre Van Damme and Arnaud Marchand. This is a stellar synergy between basic and applied immunology at the Institute of Medical Immunology, ULB, and also the University of Antwerp's strong clinical, epidemiological, and development experience and activities in vaccinology. Just think of Vaccinopolis. This launch is timely, as we clearly have entered the age of pandemics. And let's not forget that COVID is not over yet, by no means. One of the main lessons of this pandemic is that without a vaccine, we would have lost more and more millions of lives. And we can't control this epidemic in a shorter time than it used to be. However, we also have seen that vaccines are not perfect, it's not enough, and we need to see more innovation to develop better vaccines, probably cross-reacting, with longer-lasting immunity, and also that are performing well among the elderly and other vulnerable populations. In addition, this is not only about pandemics. Think of vaccines for childhood diseases where we still need a major development. Think of vaccines against HIV, where we still haven't got one, despite billions of investment for the last 40 years. Imperfect vaccines for TB, for malaria, and also vaccines for the future, especially I'm thinking here of the elderly, with the challenges of senescence, and that will be a major area for both basic research and applied research. Another major lesson of this pandemic is that international collaboration is essential. This pandemic, by definition, is not over until it's over everywhere, and it's by combining forces that we can find much rapidly solutions. And CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation, is a good example of that. It's a prime platform for collaboration, for investments in vaccines where there is largely no market incentive, or where we need to have a vaccine with no time, the 100 days mission, and that was created after the Ebola 2014 major epidemic in West Africa. And also the European Union is rising to the challenge with the creation of HERA, the Health Emergency Response Authority, which will, among other things, also invest in the development of vaccines. And of course, we need collaboration across the Atlantic, with Africa, with Asia. All this is part of the mission of this institute. The new institute will further strengthen an already very strong ecosystem for vaccine development and manufacturing in Belgium. And it brings together academia, think of the Institute of Medical Immunology, at ULB, the Rega Institute and the Virus Bank at the University of Leuven, the University of Ghent, the Flemish Institute for Biotechnology, and of course also the University of Antwerp, and think of the unique setup now in Vaccinology. But also with startups, small and big biotech, and pharma. So this is going to be one of the essential parts of that ecosystem. Again, my congratulations and good luck for what will be a very important endeavor that will save millions of lives.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. It is quite quite an excitement and also an emotion to, next slide please, announce today that Pierre and I are getting married scientifically, for better, for worse, until retirement age do us apart. So talking about retirement age, is it a good idea to ask two scientists of an average age of 59 to launch and carry this project? There are in this room a number of people who remain extremely productive beyond retirement age. But these people are quite exceptional. So what about standard elderly scientists like us? Actually, the data are pretty reassuring. Next slide, please. Not only from this study performed a few years ago in Canada, we see that older scientists actually publish more and publish papers that are highly cited. So that's reassuring. What's perhaps worrying is the fact that the relative citations go down and are lowest at around the age of 50. That was a surprise. And what the authors relate this observation to, is the fact that there are lower funding opportunities often in this time of the scientific career. So at the Plotkin Institute, we will work on an environment providing opportunities across scientific careers. Next slide. Vaccination is a laboratory for democracy. Because, in fact, vaccines belong to everyone. They go from one hand to another, from their conception, their evaluation, their production, and their use. And we see through this pandemic that this global ownership is essential to get the full benefit of vaccines. And if you truly want to own something, you need to know it, and you need to care for it. So communication is essential. I realized that this is a bit abstract, perhaps, so I thought I would use a webcam and live project you on the screen. So that didn't work out, so I brought a mirror to make my point. So this is you. This is to say that on that screen, it's you, it's us, and everyone else on the planet. So at the Plotkin Institute, we will work with you. We will work with every stakeholder and share that global ownership. And we will communicate to promote it. Next slide. We are beginning to see life after COVID-19. At the Plotkin Institute, we will continue to remember this pandemic and learn from it in order to prepare ourselves better for the next ones. Next slide, please. When I see all the people working on this project and all the people joining us as we are building it, when I imagine all the people who will take that project further, I think that the potential of the European Plotkin Institute for Vaccinology is gigantic. And I'm convinced that what it will achieve goes beyond what we can imagine today. And we are so very fortunate, next slide, to be standing, actually sitting, I hope you don't mind, on the shoulders of a giant, Stanley Plotkin. Next slide, please. And we are humbled and tremendously encouraged by the support of the Belgian federal government, of donors, and our universities and our rectors. Thank you so much.
Voici le moment officiel de l'inauguration et le moment de vous dévoiler la plaque de l'Institut Plotkin de Vaccinologie.
What do I do now? I know, you're marvelous. You guys really...
Voilà. Et je sais personnellement que la rédaction des plaques commémoratives comme ça, c'est parfois très difficile. Ici, je n'ai rien vu passer, tout s'est bien passé. C'est un signe de la coopération qui va être excellente. Un grand merci, vous tous. On vous invite à la réception, mais évidemment, d'abord, nous allons terminer avec une partie de musique avec notre artiste. Merci beaucoup. Voilà.
When the night has gone and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand now. Stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall on the mountains, should crumble through the sea, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. stand now, stand by me. Whenever you're in trouble, won't you stand by me? Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand now, stand by me.
Merci beaucoup.